afternoon, and thank you all for joining us for this webinar on bedbug infestations, what you need to know, presented to you by Hotel Business and Western Pest Services. I'm Nicole Carlino, Managing Editor for Hotel Business, and I'm here with Hope Bowman and Shannon Sked, who are both board-certified entomologists with Western Pest Services. Hope serves as technical specialist with the company, and Shannon as a specialty services manager. During today's presentation, they'll share insights on the latest in bedbug monitoring, detection methods, and solutions. We encourage all of you to send us any questions you have at any point during the discussion, and they'll be answered during a Q&A session at the end. And with that, I'll turn it over to our experts.
All right, thank you. Hold on one second. We're trying to move it forward, and it's not moving forward on our end. All right, here we go. Sorry about that. A little delay, but we're good. All right, so what we're going to start out with is just a few facts about bedbugs, just a little bit of information, sort of some trivia about them. So the first thing is that about 1 out of 5 Americans have either had an infestation of bedbugs or know someone who has. So being in the hotel industry, I'm sure that you've either dealt with them or you definitely have been somebody who knows someone who has dealt with bedbugs. So they are pretty common. So another kind of not so fun fact, I suppose, about bedbugs is that University of Kentucky study reported that the value for a single report of bedbugs in a hotel on a traveler review will lower the value of business hotel room by up to $38 per room per night. So what that means is if you have a notification on like a TripAdvisor or something like that, that says that there were bedbugs somebody found in the hotel room, then the amount of money that you're going to be able to gain for that room is going to drop by $38. That's for one room. But if you multiply that by, say you have a 100-room hotel room, that would be $3,800 for a night, times 300 nights of occupancy could be over $1 million. So it's not small change. One potential bedbug sighting can really, that ends up on some sort of site, really could end up being an issue. So I'm sure that you all know about bedbug registry. You probably keep active tabs on bedbug registry. There's lots and lots of different reports that have gone to this site. There's about 20,000 reported sightings covering 12,000 locations, and you all know that bedbug registry is not the only place where people report potential bedbug sightings. But if you multiply that $38 times all of those potential sightings, times if you just figure it's about 100 hotel rooms on average at a location, that could be potentially $76 million to the industry. So it's really an important issue out there. So we all sort of think about bedbugs being something that guests bring in to the hotel, but there's other sources where bedbugs can be potentially brought in. So laundering vendors can, third-party vendors, if someone has got them at their home and potentially could bring them into the hotel. So if you look at this cart here, there's the canvas on the cart, there's the wheels. Both of those are areas where bedbugs could potentially hide and then move to a new area. So those are some things to kind of be aware of also. It may not only be the guests, there's other options of places they could get brought in. So let's just talk about meeting the bedbug itself. You all probably have seen some bedbugs at some point in time. This picture shows a range of what bedbugs can look like throughout their life. So starting on the left are the eggs, going over to the left are the adults. And the bottom left-hand corner, that is what a bedbug looks like after it's fed. So in general, bedbugs are very flat. They fit into very small cracks and crevices. They're about 1/8 of an inch long, reddish brown. As adults, they resemble unfed ticks or small cockroaches, but when they're engorged with blood, they end up ending up being a little bit bigger and a little bit longer. So that's what you see on the bottom left-hand side. Adults also have no wings, so they don't fly. So if you have somebody that comes that says that they've got bed bugs and they see something flying, it's not going to be bed bugs because they don't fly. But they also don't jump. So if something's jumping, it may be fleas is probably the most likely thing if someone's getting bit and something's jumping. So what I want you to do also is just remember this slide. Later, Shannon's going to be talking a little bit about canine and detecting bed bugs with using a canine. And if you really focus on the bed bugs that are over on the right-hand part of this slide, they're very small. The nymphs, they go through 5 stages, and they are very small right after they hatch out of the eggs. And the eggs are very small also. So just keep that in mind as we go through this presentation and talk a little bit about how you might find bed bugs. So why do bed bugs love hotels? Well, one reason is that the food that they want to feed on is there. So they feed exclusively on blood, and blood from humans is what they prefer. And in hotels, there is high occupancy, and there's a higher percentage of square footage that is beds. So if you think about your house at home, you might have a den or a living room or a kitchen, and then some bedrooms. But in a hotel, pretty much the entire place is bedrooms. So there's a higher percentage of the square footage is going to be where bed bugs are likely to be. Another reason bed bugs love hotels is because there's these fine headboards that are in every hotel. They make the hotel room look nice, but they also have tons of cracks and crevices in order for bed bugs to hide. So bed bugs, they are kind of the opposite of claustrophobic. They want to be in tight spots. So when they're in tight spots, they can fit in any space where you can slide a business card in. So if you look at especially this headboard on the right, there's little cracks and crevices between each one of those sections of wood, and bed bugs love to hide in there. It's very close to where the food or the people are. And headboards aren't moved very often. They stay in place, and so they can hide behind the headboard very easily. So that's another reason that they really love hotels. Another reason that bed bugs love hotels is that there's a turnover of, unfortunately, they consider them victims. The bed bugs consider them victims. We call them guests of the hotel. But the folks that come to the hotel, they come on a regular basis, and the bed bugs always have this ongoing source of food for themselves. Another thing that can be challenging with all of you in the hotel situation is that people may come for a night or two. They may get bit by bed bugs. They may bring the bed bugs may end up in their baggage and bring them home with them, but they may not realize that they had a problem when they were at the hotel. So the person may leave without complaining about a bed bug incident, and then another person who's either more sensitive to bites or is new to that area may end up coming into there too. So that can be an issue. So who is really inspecting your rooms? So your pest control provider may be inspecting the room. You may have a canine through your pest control provider. Your housekeeping staff also is going to be inspecting the room. And you also may have a guest that comes in and inspects the room. And just remember that cost per night discussion earlier. It's much better if a notification that bed bugs are in a hotel does not show up on any sort of social media or bed bug registry. Much better if you and your staff find a problem before a guest finds a problem. So here are some places where bed bugs like to hide. So they like to hide in cracks and crevices. So any place that can be is tight, where as many parts of their body can be touching a surface as possible, that's where they're going to like to hide. So in the mattress, the box spring, the bed frame, if there's a platform bed, there's so many places they can hide in between the members of wood, in between the metal that makes up the platform bed, behind mirrors, pictures, behind wallpaper if it's lifted up a little bit, any place where there's molding, the ottoman in that picture, there's gaps and cracks they can hide in there, and pillows, outlets, any sort of chairs, underneath the dust cover that's on the bottom of an ottoman or a chair. Those are other places that they're going to like to hide. So your staff is really the first line of defense in making sure that you detect a bedbug issue early from your perspective. So there's several different ways you can get your staff trained. There's lots of online information. There's different posters out there that you can maybe put in a housekeeping break area so that they know what to look for, and it's always on the forefront of their mind when they're in rooms. And then you also may have your pest control vendor may do informational sessions for your housekeeping. Western does these on a pretty regular basis, so we'll come in and educate the housekeeping staff about what to look for and what to do if you find a bed bug. And the thing that's good about ongoing inspections when housekeeping is doing it is they're systematic, they're controlled, they're ongoing. You're always going into rooms to change linens, and if they can just be taking that one little extra step to make sure that there aren't any bed bugs, that's going to be very helpful. So the thing that you're really trying to combat against is that guests also perform inspections too. So this is one of our coworkers' brother-in-law that was trained by one of our coworkers to look for bed bugs whenever he went on a trip. And he sent her a picture saying, look, I was looking for bed bugs. And we train people to look out for bed bugs. If we're going to other types of commercial facilities to do information sessions, we'll tell them how to look in hotel rooms for bed bugs. Our home service customers, we also teach them how to inspect for bed bugs in hotels. So, and there's lots of information, again, online, any information out there. So your guests are definitely performing inspections as well. So one of the things that we really wanted to make sure that you get some more information about is being proactive. And so Shannon's going to talk a little bit about a way to do proactive inspections for bed bugs.
So the idea here is we don't want necessarily to have guests find bed bugs. So what we have, what we're going to talk about now is a little bit about Canine and the appropriate use of Canine for scent detection work in finding bed bugs. And we'll talk a little bit about the way that they work and what makes them so effective. The first thing to know is this is nothing new, really. There has been entomological scent detection, which is basically using dogs to find bugs or different types of insects, has gone on for quite a while. Termite dogs have been around for longer than bed bug sniffing dogs have been around. And then in 2008, there was a paper that came out, and it was out of the University of Florida, and it looked at a bunch of different methodologies that are incorporated to train these dogs for finding, in this specific study, bed bugs. And what this researcher found was that it could be anywhere from 92 to 98% effectiveness of utilizing dogs if they follow certain training methodologies to actually be able to find bed bugs. The idea here, though, is that we want to be able to use these dogs in a proactive manner so that we can actually find the bed bugs before any of your guests find them. That's the purpose. Give me 1 second, it froze up again. Here we go. All right, so it's a graph, so don't get scared, but it's important because this actually gives you a bit of a point of view as far as what makes sense on the way that the dogs are used. The first thing to notice here is if you go all the way back to that slide that Hope was mentioning, where she had a picture of bed bugs that were in a hand, the most noticeable part of the life cycle of a bed bug is actually the adults, especially the larger engorged adults. And if you look at this graph, the solid blue bar is actually the proportion of adult bed bugs that have been produced over a period of 180 days in a hotel environment. The solid green line is the number of nymphs that have been produced in that same time, and the solid red line is the number of eggs that have been produced in that time. As you can see, the number of eggs and the number of nymphs is much, much bigger than the number of adults. As a matter of fact, the population of adults could be as low as 5 to 7% of the total population of bed bugs in any infestation. And because of that, the part that's really noticeable is actually the hardest part to see. Or I'm sorry, is actually the smallest proportion of the entire population, which means it's going to be a lot more difficult to find those few individuals, 5 to 7%, than it is to be able to try to find nymphs or eggs. The problem is the nymphs and the eggs, they're cryptic, they're hidden, and they're incredibly small. As a matter of fact, the smallest nymphs are almost see-through. They're translucent. They don't get that reddish color until they start taking blood meals. Well, if you could see on this graph over on the first orange box where it has treatment, there's actually been some research that's been done to actually take a look at when are treatments most effective, least costly, and have the best success. And right to the right of that, which is after that treatment window of opportunity, is when most people will actually find bedbug infestations. So the problem is that with human inspections, we usually are capable of seeing the problem after we've passed that window of opportunity for effective and cost-effective treatment. However, if you look all the way over to the left in the green box there, it has the bar of opportunity for canine. These dogs are actually trained so that they could find bedbug populations as low as one individual bedbug or one individual egg. So we're talking about very small numbers. They find the nymphs, they find the eggs just as well as they find the adults. So they're actually going to find the problem before we lose that window of opportunity for the treatment, and much more importantly, before your guests have the chance to actually find them. How they work is pretty simple. There's nothing, the training is actually just getting them to actually smell one specific odor. But their morphology and their anatomy allows them to actually experience the world through scent. So they have a bunch of different organs in their sinus cavity that gives them these unique features to really be the masters at scent work. But there's this number that always gets thrown around, 250 million to 500 million olfactory receptors, whereas we have only about 5 million olfactory receptors. And so what does that mean? I mean, more is better, of course, but what does that really mean in an experiential term? And I always use my McDonald's story to explain this because I think everybody really gets it. So with 5 million olfactory receptors, if I walk into a McDonald's, what I'm going to smell is, a lot of people will say, you know, when I ask this question often, they say, well, grease or fries or burgers. And I always argue it. I say, no, I smell McDonald's. There's really not an odor in the world that smells quite like McDonald's outside of McDonald's. With 5 million olfactory receptors and with my limited sinus cavity, what I'm capable of doing is taking all of those odors, aggregating them together, and having one experience with that odor. And so when I walk in, I smell, and I smell McDonald's. If a dog walks in, they have a very, very different experience. It's called scent differentiation. With 250 million olfactory receptors and all of this unique anatomy, what they're capable of doing is actually breaking apart all those individual odors. They could smell a sesame seed. They could smell the lettuce. They could smell an individual bun. If they could talk, they could tell us what all the ingredients are in the Big Mac sauce. So they actually are capable of breaking all of those odors down. All that we do with the scent detection work is it's the same exact process that's used for bomb sniffing dogs or narcotic dogs. We're through positive reinforcement, we're